So whenever you guys want to get started, I think we can go ahead and start.
All right. Well, first of all, good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, so we will get started. Thank you all for joining us this evening for our second Judicial Candidates Forum to learn more about Sarah Lewis and Marissa Huda-Barrett, the two remaining candidates in the race for first city court judge in the runoff election on August 15th, 2020. My name is Sean Mina, and I am one of the chairs of the Political Action Committee. Jonathan Williams, my co-chair, and I will serve as your moderators this evening. We want to thank our co-hosts, the League of Women Voters, Emerging New Voices and Voters, and the Urban League of Louisiana Young Professionals for joining us tonight. And we want to thank the candidates for joining us again. Before we get started, I'd like to just go over a few housekeeping rules and to also lay the foundation of how we will proceed. First, everyone is on mute, and we ask that you stay on mute for the duration of the forum. If you have questions for the candidates, please type them into the chat box. If time allows, we will address the questions in the chat box once we've cycled through the prepared questions. When we start shortly, each candidate will be given 5 minutes to introduce themselves and their platform. After each candidate has made his or her introductions, we will move on to the next question and answer segment of the forum. The candidates have not been told what questions will be asked. Each candidate will be asked the same question and will be given between 2 and 3 minutes to answer each question. The time allotted for each question will be announced prior to the start of the question. Kimberly Silas will monitor the time. Once we have cycled through the questions, each candidate will be given 1 minute to make closing remarks. So let's start with the introductions. First, we'll have Ms. Huda-Barrett.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marissa Huda-Barrett, and I'm offering myself as candidate for first city court judge because this is the way that I want to serve the community I fell in love with over a decade ago. I'm originally from Chicago. I was raised by my grandmother, my mother, and my father. My grandmother was one of the earliest influences in my life, and she taught me the value of being respectful of others, of their perspectives, their values, their religions, cultures, and traditions. And it is this value that she instilled in me that has shaped me into being who I am today. I moved to New Orleans to pursue my law degree at Loyola University. And like so many people, I love New Orleans so much. I couldn't bear to leave this amazing city that I'm so blessed, honored, and proud to call home. After law school, I clerked for 3 judges, Judge Barriel on Civil District Court, Judge Belsom, and Judge Lombard on the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals. Working closely alongside these judges taught me the importance of effective, efficient, and transparent leadership. It also helped me to discover my passion to administer the law. I then began working on the other side of the bench as a civil litigation attorney, advocating for members of the public. This gave me the perspective of those standing before a judge. I'm a member of the Orchid Society, where we serve as mentors to young women. I'm also a board member on the Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse. I'm the proud recipient of the AFL-CIO endorsement, along with the endorsements of the Orleans Parish Democratic Executive Committee, the Independent Women's Organization, the Regular Democratic Organization, and the Forum for Equality. I've also received endorsements from elected officials, including Senators Jimmy Harris and Joe Bowie, Representatives Jason Hughes, Stephanie Hilferty, and Royce Duplessis, Council members Cindy Wen, Kristen Palmer, and Joe Geruso, Louisiana Human Rights Commissioner Richard Perk, and Sheriff Marlon Guzman. From a young age, my immigrant parents taught me the importance of education, hard work, and giving back to the community. And it is their example that has propelled me to where I am today. I have the compassion, the courage, and the commitment to serve our community well as judge for First City Court. The compassion to have citizens from all walks of life who come before the court feel welcomed, feel respected, and feel that their voices are being heard by a fair and impartial judge. The courage to apply my solid understanding of the law, and the commitment to work tirelessly to efficiently serve the public. As you know, early voting is until August 8th, and election day is August 15th. I thank you so much for your time and consideration. I'd be honored to have your vote for me to serve you your family, and our community as your next First City Court Judge.
Thank you so much. Next, we will have Ms. Lewis for introductions.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us on this forum. We appreciate so much being able to introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit about us. And for, everybody who's interested in this race, it's great to have so many people care about what goes on in our city and our elected officials. So my name is Sarah Lewis. I'm running for First City Court Judge. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, but my mom moved here from Italy when she was in her 20s, and my grandparents moved shortly thereafter to help raise me and my sister. And they never learned English. So I grew up translating for my family from Italian. And while I probably won't use Italian all that much in a courtroom, it does teach you that people can come from very different backgrounds, very different cultures, and speak completely different languages, but still deserve to be heard, to be represented, to be understood. So I went to Georgetown for undergraduate and then graduated from Tulane Law. And while in law school, I clerked for Judge Wicker in the Louisiana Fifth Circuit, and I did an externship in domestic violence with New Orleans Legal Aid, which is now Southeast Legal Services. Since law school, I've been in private practice. I'm a partner at the firm of Wall, Bullington & Cook, and I do mainly civil litigation. I've practiced in, I counted it at some point, more than 20 parishes across the state of Louisiana. And what that really has taught me is the importance of having a judge who is well prepared, who is patient, who listens to the facts of each case, and who impartially and fairly applies the law. This is particularly important in First City Court. As many of y'all know, First City Court handles civil cases under $25,000. Including, personal injury, wage and hour disputes, as well as evictions under $3,000. Most people represent themselves in this court. As many of you are attorneys, most of you are attorneys, you know the importance of having legal representation. In civil matters, there is no right to an attorney. However, it's even more important that a judge make sure that everybody who comes before them feels like they have a safe place where they can tell the facts of their case, and then that the judge has a duty, and I, if elected, would have the duty of making sure that everybody knows what the law is that applies to them, what rights that they have, and has the information that they need at their disposal. So I volunteered as well. I was on the board of Luke's House Clinic for many years. Luke's House was one of the only completely free medical and mental health clinics in New Orleans, located in Central City. I'm also on the board of Energy Wise Alliance, EWA, which provides low-income residents with energy affordability training. And so in New Orleans, one of the things that is, an additional burden, other than we have extremely high rent to income ratios, is we also have extremely high energy costs. We spend something on average like 20% of our income on energy costs. It's very hot during the summers. So Energy Wise provides a really important service to low-income populations to teach them both, it's environmentally friendly on the one hand, which is very important, and it also, helps reduce this burden on low-income families. I also do, me and my law partner work with the Criminal Justice Act panel, and we handle federal criminal defense. The Criminal Justice Act appoints attorneys when the federal public defender is conflicted out for multi-defendant representation. So I've also handled federal criminal defense. As Marissa said, our election day is right around the corner. It's on August 15th. Early voting is through August 8th. And we are the only thing on the ballot, so it's really important to make sure that everybody, everyone y'all know, your friends, your family, come out and vote. And thank you so much for the time.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Jonathan Williams will be asking the first question.
Question 1. In your view, why do you think you advanced to the runoff election? Ms. Lewis, let's start with you, and you have 2 minutes to answer this question.
And I'm sorry, the question was why, in my view, do I think I've advanced to the runoff?
That is correct.
I think that this is going to sound a little trite, but hard work and determination. We had a really interesting election cycle, if you will, with COVID-19. We had our election date postponed twice. It also made it so that you couldn't really have large gatherings, obviously. So what I've done is, I volunteered with several different food banks, delivering meals through the Jewish organization, GNO and the Jewish Federation, delivering meals to elderly people. And hospital workers as well. And then also, I have a great field manager, and we do what we call COVID canvassing, and we go to neighborhoods throughout the city. We wear masks, we stay within 6 feet, we stay more than 6 feet, and we drop literature. And if someone is outside or comes outside, we interact with them from a safe distance and tell them a little bit about us, me. I've only canvassed for one other candidate before, and that was pre-COVID. And I can tell you that it's even more effective now without knocking on doors. There's so many people that are home. There's so many people that are outside. There's so many people who are really, really invested right now in what is going on in our elections. So that's my guess. Other than that, luck and, good graces.
Thank you. Ms. Huda Barrett?
Yes, sir. So as Sarah mentioned, our campaign started off as a traditional campaign, and 2 weeks before our primary election that was scheduled for April 4th, we had the stay-at-home order. And so, we had to re-strategize, and our team has done the best of our ability to make sure we can get the word out that there is an election still taking place. We used social media. We used pretty much everything with the exception of TikTok for the past few months with COVID. I've been personally volunteering with Second Harvest and World Central Kitchen at local churches and with organizations, to prepare, package, and deliver food. I participated in a local heroes challenge to deliver lunch to first responders, took part in mask giveaways throughout the community, organized a Father's Day giveaway with Council Member Cindy Wen. One of the most creative things that we did to try to see about getting out the vote was our campaign partnered up with local influencers Party Genius and Rare Label to sponsor a bike and vote. I've been hitting the ground, trying to speak with whomever will speak with me with a mask on, with gloves, passing out paraphernalia and pamphlets and with gloves on, just making sure we can actually speak to voters and let people know that there is in fact an election going on. And that's pretty much been taking place since the beginning of the stay-at-home order. So aside from that, hopefully the word has been getting out, and with God's blessing and everything else, and just like Sarah said, with luck, that is how we made it to the runoff.
All right, thank you so much. I will start the second question. If you become aware of unethical conduct on the part of a trial advocate in a case in which you are presiding, how would you handle it? Do you believe judges should be required to report attorney misconduct? Ms. Huda Barrett, you have 2 minutes to answer this question.
I believe that if it is in fact found that there may be attorney misconduct involved and I am made aware of it, if elected, I believe that something like that would have to be reported and disclosed to the proper parties that need to know this information. After making sure that there are, the proper research and maybe a bit of investigation on my part to see that in fact did occur. I would like to say that that's something that needs to be made aware of to the proper parties as soon as some kind of misconduct as soon as that has been done. Yes.
Thank you so much. Ms. Lewis, same question.
And the question is again, if while I'm presiding as a judge, if misconduct came to my attention, if I would report that misconduct?
Yes, ma'am. Do you believe that judges should be required to report attorney misconduct?
You know, I like Marissa was saying, I think that I would have to investigate what the misconduct was on a case-by-case basis, take into consideration what facts there are, what the situation is, and then if those facts would warrant, reporting it, I would have to make an evaluation and then, of course, report it to, the Louisiana Supreme Court and the Office of Professional Conduct if the situation required it.
Thank you so much. Jonathan, with the next question.
Yes. Question 3. In 2 minutes, describe one instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma and how you handled it. Ms. Huda-Barrett, let's start with you.
Absolutely. So when clerking for Judge Burial in domestic court, there were many self-represented litigants that came to court. And as an extension of the judge, we're unable to give legal advice. Procedural requirement questions can be answered, but legal advice is not, that's just not allowed. It's not acceptable. That is not to be done. There was a time that I thought that I may be, answering a certain question was teetering on potential violation of providing legal advice. And fortunately, I made sure that what I was saying, and I had to stop myself and make sure that what I was saying was not legal advice. And I was able to circumvent that situation. But the issue was, when people are coming into court with very vulnerable matters, my heart was trying to go out and make sure that I was providing them with the information that would help them proceed in their matter. I needed to take a step back and make sure that the information that I was providing was in fact not legal advice. So I was able to make sure that that didn't happen, but that was a close call.
So real quick with my 2 to 3 minutes, I'm also going to say, Mr. Williams, that neither Marissa or I said this in response to your first question, but I think we also both meant it. Of course, our qualifications and, our records as attorneys are also what led us to go to the runoff and the other things we said about campaigning. But as to an ethical issue, when I was right at the beginning of being an attorney, I had filed a verified petition for a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction. And as a young attorney, one of your biggest fears is to do something wrong, and particularly do something wrong when you have no idea you've done it wrong. So I had put facts in the petition for a temporary restraining order, which I later found out not to be accurate. So what I had to do is I immediately contacted the court. I contacted opposing counsel. We got on a phone call together, and I admitted to, the mistake that I had made. And it was definitely one of those situations where about 30 minutes leading up to that phone call, your stomach drops, you feel completely horrible. And I feel like an innate tendency that we all have as human beings to want to push off something like that. And having that experience really taught me that, as with most things in life, just owning up to something that has, that you've done wrong, owning up to a situation, taking care of it immediately, not letting time progress, not letting your tendency to want to avoid difficult situations let you, stop you from going forward immediately. So, and just being honest and owning up to your mistakes is really important. And, it's something also, it taught me to go with my gut and make sure that I think as lawyers, we have the important duty to be, completely honest with the court. And so it was definitely a learning experience.
Thank you so much. Question 4. Last month, we asked you all about evictions, but in the context of access to justice. Now, let's focus more on the substantive area of evictions. As previously mentioned, evictions are a hot-button topic in our city. Please tell us how familiar you are with eviction and/or housing laws, including whether you have ever handled any eviction matters. If you are not familiar with this area of the law, what are you doing to prepare yourself for these cases, which you know are inevitably coming? You have 3 minutes to answer this question. Ms. Lewis, we'll start with you.
Yes, so I've handled cases on behalf of landlords and tenants, not specifically dealing with an eviction. However, I've dealt with issues involving prior to an eviction being filed, as well as issues involving returns of deposits and other disputes, contractual disputes. So what I'm doing to prepare for it on this matter, I mean, prior to COVID-19, it was approximately 50% of the matters that went before First City Court, the other 50% being the remainder of the limited jurisdiction, $25,000 and under civil cases. So I've obviously been familiarizing myself with the law, reading opinions, and taking the time to also understand that we are in a unique situation, reading housing reports from Jane's Place and other housing advocacy groups to, to make decisions in a vacuum, I think would be, I think part of my duty as a judge is to also inform myself of the situation that is going on in our society right now, to also understand, we have evictions that we have twice the national eviction rate before COVID-19. And so I think that, being well-informed is part of my duty as a judge, and also informed about avenues that people and litigants would have after an eviction, such as resources that they could use, making sure I prepare myself and, speak with people in the community regarding different, as I said, avenues that people who have faced an eviction can go to.
Thank you so much. Ms. Huda Barrett, same question.
Yes, sir. So I have actually not been involved in any eviction proceedings previously or before, but I have been preparing myself through studying, whether it be the code, through reading articles online. I have been doing research with the frameworks of law schools in the nation, of their housing clinics, to propose to our law schools here in our state to implement them here. I've been speaking with the executive director of Housing NOLA to see about more resources that are available to potential litigants that may come to court with regards to evictions. I do understand that there are some judges in that court that landlords can be asked to do a compromise and work with family members so they could possibly not get evicted and be placed on a payment plan, or urged to afford more time to the family to afford them to find them a place to live. And those are things I intend to do as a judge. But in preparation, I've been reading up on the law. I've been trying to contact various resources and attorneys to get their insight, to get some more information with regards to how these proceedings do take place, and researching other avenues and resources that are available or that will be available to potential litigants.
Thank you so much. Jonathan?
Question 5. If elected to the position that you're currently seeking, what is the minimum number of years you intend to serve before seeking a judicial post at a higher level? What is your commitment to serving out the full term? Let's start with you, Ms. Huda Barrett. You have 2 minutes.
Our public has a commitment of mine that I will be serving for the full term. My current goal right now is going to be to be placed on the bench here in First City Court. And my commitment that I'm making to the public is that this is where I intend on being, at least for the full term, definitely for the full term. And we just have to play it by ear accordingly after that, but definitely for the full term. And this is where I want to be.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
One of the things that I think makes First City Court a unique and really interesting and useful place for the city is the fact that most people who do represent themselves in this court, the majority of people. So it really makes it a place where a judge's role is ever more important. A judge is dealing one-on-one with individuals. Most of the time, a judge has the duty of making sure that the litigants know, what their rights are, know what the law is. And it really lets you be, it really is like it's a very important service that First City Court provides to the city. It allows people to access justice often for the first time. So I'm giving you that long-winded answer to say, this is my commitment. It is my goal to be the judge for First City Court, and I at this point have no other intentions and I'm not seeking any other positions. I have no plans to seek any other positions.
Thank you. Next question. If you see a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective lawyer, how would you handle the situation? Ms. Lewis, you have 2 minutes to answer.
So first, since First City Court does handle a lot of self-represented litigants, I think that it is my duty as a judge would be to be patient with people who are before my court. Make sure that everybody has the chance to explain what the facts of their case are. Now, if it's an attorney who is, not prepared, I guess, I would have to see what the situation is with each individual attorney who's there. If they're falling asleep on the job or something like that, definitely reprimanding an attorney, a judge can issue sanctions depending on the severity of the misconduct. And so without really knowing more about the case, I do think that a way to, having been before many different types of judges in many different parishes with many different styles. I think that running a courtroom efficiently is it's one of our duties. It's one of the duties of a judge, making sure that everyone who's there is on task and paying attention is one of the duties of the judge. However, I don't necessarily. I think that you can garner respect, not necessarily just with fear. So I think that you can garner respect by, holding people to a high standard. And I hope to run my courtroom in that manner by showing, the attorneys who are before me and the self-represented litigants that are before me that I respect them, I respect their time, and I respect their, ability to, present the facts to me. So on a case-by-case basis, I would have to decide that.
Thank you so much. Ms. Huda Barrett?
Yes, absolutely. I guess we all know that First City Court is known as People's Court because of all the pro se litigants that come here. And with that being said, oftentimes the judges are on the front lines, and they are on the front lines assisting and helping handle cases that people are often handling themselves. Now, when an attorney who may be poorly managing a litigant's case, their client's case, as Sarah indicated, it needs to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. If the misconduct is so severe, they need to be sanctioned or otherwise. Personally, my respect for litigants and their time and their matters before the court is going to be shown by being prepared and punctual daily. So hopefully, through the paperwork that has been filed beforehand, hopefully the attorney has done at least that, I will be able to at least garner some kind of information with regard to what is going on in the case, enough to know what's going on, to also inquire or ask certain questions with regards to a particular case. But again, it's just based on a case-by-case basis. And if the action is so severe, or they're really just falling asleep on the job and just completely poorly representing their client, then sanctions need to be taken accordingly.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Question 7. Why do you believe voters should support you rather than your opponent? Ms. Huda Barrett, 2 minutes, please.
I believe that my temperament and my legal knowledge uniquely qualifies me to serve our community well as a judge for First City Court. My opportunity to serve under 3 judges provided me with the institutional knowledge of the judicial system from the inside. And this has given me a realistic look on how efficiently a docket can move while keeping in mind the needs of a judicial staff. As a judicial law clerk, I actively participate in the daily operations of the courtroom. I was involved in the decision-making process, including the review of the presented facts and evidence, the legal research, and the interpretation of the law. Specifically working in the appellate court under Judge Belsom and Judge Lombard provided me with an opportunity to see a wide variety of cases from its inception in the trial court to the judgment that brought it to the appellate court. As an extension of the judge on the trial court level under Judge Barriel, I would also communicate with counsel and self-represented litigants to answer questions regarding procedural requirements. Then working on the other side of the bench as a civil litigation attorney for Glagel Williams, advocating for members of the public, gave me the perspective of those standing before a judge. I work personal injury cases and have been involved in the Hard Rock collapse litigation. I've also served as primary contact attorney in our involvement in class action cases, which includes the, National Prescription Opiate litigation, the Juul e-cigarette litigation, and the Roundup litigation. Aside from that, moreover, I believe that I possess an inherent nature. I pride myself in possessing an inherent nature to treat everyone from all walks of life with kindness, with respect, with compassion. And I believe that it is this particular quality that provides me and continues to provide me with the ability to communicate efficiently and effectively with a diverse population.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I will say that 30 seconds remaining thing can be a little jarring. It definitely throws you off when you're responding to a question. So I, as I said, I grew up translating for my family. I also speak Spanish fluently. And while, I may not use Italian in a courtroom, it does teach you that people can come from different backgrounds. I think that I practiced in civil litigation and I'm a partner at my firm. And I've also handled cases on both the plaintiffs and the defense side. I do mainly oil and gas litigation and environmental litigation for the most part, as well as general civil litigation. So I've represented both landowners and oil companies, and I think that having a perspective of representing people on both sides as well, landlords as well as tenants, does give you an ability to see things from both sides, and as a judge, would make me particularly apt at being, looking at both sides of a situation that are presented to me. It's not just, one of the judicial canons, and it's not just, words that we use a lot, but impartiality, having a judge where you feel that you can go before them and that the facts of your case will determine how a case is decided, and nothing more, well, other than the law that is, applied, I think is really important. It's one of the things that has distinguished, different jurisdictions and different courts that I've been before and different judges, and really made me respect the institution. So as I said, there's the 30 seconds remaining box. As I said, I think that that my experience and my dedication to the law makes me the best candidate.
Thank you so much. Next question. You will have 2 minutes to answer. Do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? If so, how should they carry out that obligation? Ms. Lewis.
Judges have an obligation to make sure that the parties that come before them, that the law is applied to the parties that come before them, regardless of if the parties know what the law is or not. Louisiana is a fact pleading state, so all that a party needs to come before the court is the facts of their case. So in that respect, judges do have a duty to make sure that the parties know what the law is and know what their rights are. I think that, as a judge, I think that making sure that people have access to information and access to resources is part of the duty as well. One of the things that I'd like to bring to First City Court is a completely free and voluntary mediation program through the Louisiana Supreme Court's Access to Justice Commission. And what that does is it brings mediators with volunteer law students or people seeking mediation certification, and it would provide this service completely free to litigants in First City Court. And I think that addition of that service would be really useful for people because obviously, since we've talked about it a lot, most people represent themselves in the court. If they cannot afford an attorney, they are not going to be able to afford a mediator either. And so having this service would be, implementing this service would be a goal of mine as a judge in First City Court. And so while that might seem like something that is extrajudicial in the sense that it's not just, rendering a decision in a case, I see it as part of what I would bring to First City Court to, provide these additional resources.
Thank you. Ms. Huda Barrett?
Yes, I do believe that part of the judicial role is also to play as an educator to the public. And so that means just that, to ensure that the litigants are aware of their rights, that the public is aware of the law and what is afforded to them. And so like I mentioned previously, working as a law clerk in domestic court, I had to effectively communicate with counsel and self-represented litigants regarding procedural requirements. And so if I'm elected, I will ensure that my staff is prepared to do the same. That also goes forward with, I intend on having forms and instructional guides and literature, both in the section and on the judge's link on the court's website, that is in language that is understandable to the public, translating legal terms. And it's my understanding that there is a self-help desk, but there are limited hours and it's oftentimes understaffed. So I'd like to explore options of having law students and attorneys to volunteer. I mentioned briefly that I intend on exploring how to get the law students from our local law schools to see if they can work with some of these self-represented litigants to provide them legal advice that they may not otherwise receive. I mentioned that I've been researching some of the frameworks in other law schools and how to implement them here so I can propose to the law schools here. And, I really want to see about how to work to educate people, to connect them with resources on the front end. Because as you know, when people are facing eviction, it is often their last chance for help as it is. So to that extent, I would like to also get involved in outreach programs with the community, organizing neighborhood meetings to inform the public about their rights and the resources that are available that may be helpful as well. I also mentioned, and I'm going to mention it again, that I spoke with the executive director of Housing NOLA to see about what other actions she thinks that I may be able to take as a judge, and that included sharing courtroom experiences with the legislators so they're aware of how the laws are affecting the public as it pertains to evictions. So that also goes into educating and letting people know.
Ms. Huda, that's your time.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Jonathan.
Question 9. As a judge, you will have the responsibility of managing a docket, employees, and to some extent, the litigants that appear before you. Please describe your supervisory administrative experience. You have 2 minutes to answer. Ms. Huda Barrett?
Let's see, my supervisory and administrative experience. Correct. Okay, so briefly, I am the oldest of 3. So this goes to my very early on supervisory experience. I am the oldest of 3, and my 2 younger siblings are much younger than I am. They refer to me as their second mother because I essentially had to take care of them from diapers up until high school. I actually ended up staying at DePaul University so I can commute from home to go to undergrad so I can take care of them. So I've been constantly taking care of them, mentoring them, making sure that everything's taken care of. But with regard to specifically the courtroom, I think that with regard to that, my opportunity to serve as a judicial law clerk and knowing and understanding the deep understanding of the hard work and long hours that is required of a judge and their judicial staff, and having the judges that I have previously worked for who taught me the importance of effective, efficient, and transparent leadership, their guidance, their mentorship has really assisted me with knowing what needs to be done with regard to making sure that a judicial staff and the division in their section is taken care of properly and run efficiently.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
So I'm a partner at my law firm. We're a small firm. It's varied over the years between 10 and 6 attorneys. So I've managed associates who are below me. I've managed a staff of paralegals, legal secretaries. as well. I've made hiring decisions and assisted in making hiring decisions. And as the sole female partner, I like to joke that I manage all the men. Zoom is funny because you can't see if your jokes land. But I've also been on the board of several organizations. As I said before, Luke's House Clinic, where we manage the executive directors as well as the volunteers. Of EnergyWise Alliance had a staff board. It has an executive director as well as about, I think, 5, or depends on the year, but various number of staff members. I've also been on, the Jewish Federation. I'm currently on the board of the Jewish Federation, as well as previously was on the board of GNO, which is the young professional arm of the Jewish Federation. So through these experiences, I've had experience managing people and diverse types of people in diverse environments. And now I get to manage a campaign staff, which is a whole new ball of fun. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll bring in one of the questions from the chat from Rashad Kaiser. What will you all continue to do outside of judgeship in the communities? For example, if your court sees a high number of eviction cases per year, what will you do to help improve renter situations or bring about awareness to issues like affordable housing, living wages, and employment opportunity? These issues directly affect the Black community in our city. 3 minutes, and I think you just finished, Sarah, so we'll get Marissa to answer that one first.
Absolutely. So I briefly touched on the fact that I have been in communication with some of the organizations and the groups that are part of the housing in our city, and I will continue to ensure that there is an open line of communication, so I'm aware of how and what other resources are available, what I can do as a judge to assist with what is going on. As we know, it's a duty of a judge to apply the law as it is written and not to legislate. So with that specifically, one of the things that I was informed that would be helpful was to share courtroom experiences with our legislators so they're aware of how the laws affect the public as it pertains to evictions. So I am definitely going to ensure that I do that, make sure that I have an open line of communication with the organizations and groups who are in housing, along with making sure that there's outreach to the community and let them know what their rights are, what other resources are available. Try to organize things within the community so they're aware of what is going on and how they can be assisted.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Lewis?
So I plan to continue the volunteering and the different organizations that I've been a member of since before I had ever planned to run for judicial office. I think that being an active part of our community is an extremely important part of my, personal life prior to this, and I will continue to be so afterwards. I think that specifically, one of the things campaigning has introduced me to, which I feel is very useful and important, is also meeting with neighborhood organizations and going to now via Zoom, but hopefully once again in person, different neighborhood organizations to see the issues that directly impact those specific areas. Like Marissa was saying, having an open line of communication with different housing advocacy groups, Jane's Place, different resources for people who come before the court as well. There's community mediation services, CMS, that handles, a lot of that could be a vital or a useful resource for people who come before this court, as well as continuing to volunteer at food pantries and food banks and other places where people, shelters, where people who use the resources of First City Court find themselves.
Thank you so much. Jonathan?
Yeah, so we have another question from the chat box from Michael Zeno. And his question is, what is your philosophy on the use of clerkships for the professional advancement of attorneys of color and female attorneys? And if elected, will you have a permanent or a term law clerk? That question is to Ms. Lewis first, and she has 3 minutes.
So I strongly believe in clerkships, particularly for women and people of color. I was a beneficiary of a clerkship while I was in law school for, it wasn't specifically for women or anything, but one of the people who served as my mentors throughout my life, my legal career, is Judge Wicker on the Louisiana Fifth Circuit. And she, unlike most of the other judges, at least at the time, always had law student clerks. She made it a point each semester as well as over the summer. And then she hired every year temporary, I guess not temporary clerks, but clerks for 1 and 2 year positions immediately out of law school. And I just think it's such a great service for new lawyers. It's such a great service also, I think, to the bench, because it's, people with different perspectives, people with fresh energy, fresh eyes, looking at, and, learning how to research and learning how to write opinions. And it was definitely one of the formative experiences of my life. And I would definitely want to pass that along as much as I could to others.
Thank you so much. Ms. Huda Barrett?
I'm a strong proponent of legal judicial clerkships. I've had 3, and that really helped me, like I said, to discover my passion to administer the law and my professional advancement. So I would like to obviously give back and make sure that, attorneys of color and female attorneys and everyone that comes in, decides to present their CV or otherwise has an opportunity to be a judicial law clerk. I personally have, I clerked for 3 judges, and they all had different ways of having the judicial law clerks get termed out. So, to ensure that there is I don't want to call it a revolving door, but to get new fresh blood in, and again, with, like Sarah said, a new perspective and, high energy with somebody who's coming out of law school, I'm very open to that, because again, I am the beneficiary of these things. So whether I would have a permanent or a term law clerk, it would probably be on a term or even a longer term law clerk position. It really just depends on who is going to be applying or otherwise. But yeah.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Jody Hill. What is your philosophy on maintaining access to justice for litigants who have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19? This one will go to Sarah first.
So obviously we are in a very unique situation with COVID-19 and being able to access courtrooms. So I would try and make it as as available as possible. So if that means Zoom hearings, if the parties consent to Zoom hearings, depending on the situation of each party. We have 17% of the population of the city of New Orleans does not have regular access to the internet. So unfortunately, that would not be a possibility in all situations. Also, there have been proposals and that I would very much like to see implemented if I could, of holding court outside of just the regular court hours, either on a weekend or in the evenings, because most people, who are going to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, would fall with that. It would be an additional impediment to accessing justice to not have court, not be able to get to court because of work. Additionally, there have been suggestions of holding court in places such as the lower 9th Ward or New Orleans East, because there are certain places in the city that it takes, even with public transportation, over an hour to get to the courthouse. So exploring different avenues such as that would allow people better access to justice would definitely be something that I would like to see implemented if I were elected.
Thank you so much. Marissa?
Absolutely. So, as you know, we are going to be facing an influx of cases as a result of the financial challenges that are due to COVID-19. And for starters, I'm going to ensure that I will extend the utmost compassion to people from all walks of life who come before the court, always, but especially during this time of the pandemic. Specifically, I intend on working with the tenants and the landlords to help them find a way to move forward to the best of my ability. If that means I'm going to accommodate the parties outside of the hours of 9 to 4 to make sure that they have their day in court. You know, people have to work. There's 9 to 4 is like the prime time. And if you still have a job right now, you probably need to make sure that you're still going into work at that time. So if that means accommodating litigants outside that time period, making sure that, maybe a Zoom conference can be held if both parties agree to it, or if it follows the ADA guidelines or otherwise, I'm going to ensure that all those things are met. I did mention some things like having the forms and the literature online, providing resources to make sure that they have access to what they need to informationally, and just making sure that, the process, the access to justice is made available to the best of my ability. And if that means, again, more Zoom conferences or making sure that the time period is outside of those hours, that is going to be my commitment. That is my commitment, and that'll be my duty to do so, to make sure there's access to court.
Thank you so much. And now we'll go into our last question. And this is more so an issue that occurred actually last week. There were a group of protesters who blocked access to the courts, basically forcing City Hall to lock its doors in an anti-eviction demonstration. How do you view that demonstration, and how do you plan on working with the demonstrators and also balancing the interest of the property owners who, still probably have to pay their mortgage on property that they're still paying on? So how do you plan on balancing the two opposing sides in that issue? I guess the first one can be Ms. Lewis to answer that.
Well, first of all, I understand the frustration of the protesters. We have known basically since the beginning of COVID-19 that one of the largest impacts would be on renters. In New Orleans, more than 50% of our population rents. They are renters. And this, we also have, I believe at the time was 24% unemployment because of COVID-19. It's going to be affecting the service industry. It's going to be disproportionately affecting people that are in the lower income brackets. And so I can understand the frustration why that would be, and I don't police how people protest. I don't police people's First Amendment rights. I think everyone has the right to go and have their voices heard. That being said, First City Court handles many things that are also not evictions. And so blocking access to justice for those people is a disservice to people who are going there, for example, for wage and hour claims. So people who have lost wages and didn't receive their last paychecks before COVID, who are trying to get money that they desperately need in these times. I think that people should be, I think that our state and federal legislatures, and I think I see on the participants, we might have some state legislatures on it, so I'm not directly stating this to you, but I think that they, and I hate to use the word failed, but definitely, didn't take up a very, very important issue that they knew was coming down the pipelines. The Federal CARES Act expired on July 24th. So we're going to be starting to see evictions on August 24th from federally backed mortgages. Right now, we don't even know the tide that is about to happen. So, my hope is that our state and federal legislatures, our city governments do step up. And, as judges, it is our duty to implement the law. We cannot change the law. We cannot issue executive orders, for example, that could be issued. I think that it is our duty to continue to implement the law, and I hope that our legislatures, there were rental assistance programs that both the government on the statewide level as well as on the city level that ran out of funding very quickly. I think within 72 hours of being implemented. So I hope that that our state government can find additional funding for that, and I hope that our federal government. There's been talks of an additional stimulus package, in addition to the CARES Act. I would, personally, I would like to see some protection for renters, some rental assistance implemented in one of those acts. But anyway, I think that, we still have a duty, a judge still has a duty to, implement the law as it is. We don't make it. So, I hope everyone's protesting outside of other people's residences as well.
That's your time.
Thank you so much. Ms. Huda Barrett? You're muted. Yeah.
Yes, apologize for that. I mean, I understand their frustrations. They are scared. They are nervous. They may be put on the street. They may be homeless. They don't have, the necessities that they need to survive. And as a judge, I know I said this earlier, but I really mean this. I will extend the utmost compassion to people from all walks of life who come before the court. And that's going to be always. But during this time of the pandemic, especially, we have a pandemic, we have a crisis on our hands. And, at this point, we're going to just need for our legislators to put something into place to assist the people who are going to be, who are going to be put on the streets or potentially put on the streets because they haven't been able to work and haven't been able to pay for their rent. So if elected, I intend on working with the tenants and the landlords to help them find a way to move forward to the best of my ability. I mean, connecting landlords with resources, connecting both tenants and landlords with resources that can help them resolve their issues, help them craft a payment plan. Again, I understand the fear and the anger and everything that the protesters are taking a stand for, but there's only so much as a judicial candidate or as a judge that really can be done. Duty of a judge is for the administration of the law, to apply the law as it is written. It's the legislature that are lawmakers who write that. I mentioned previously, but I'll mention again that I do understand that some of the judges in that court are having landlords or asking landlords to do a compromise and work with these family members so they can possibly not get evicted, place them on a payment plan, or urge to afford the family more time to find them places to live. So those are things I intend to do as a judge as well. And just seeing what resources can be provided to these renters who are, facing potential eviction.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Jonathan.
Before closing, we're going to allow each candidate 1 minute for closing remarks. We're going to start with you first, Ms. Huda Barrett. You have 1 minute.
Absolutely. I want to thank you all so much for this opportunity to introduce ourselves to you again. I know this is our second time. Before going into private practice, I held 3 judicial clerkship positions, and that allowed me to understand the power of a judge when presiding over cases. And as a judge, what you need is the desire and the compassion to help people. And that is who I am. It is who I've been my entire career. I want to make sure that our court system has a more efficient process and works better for those who are too often denied access to justice. I have a deep understanding of the hard work and the long hours required of a judge and their judicial staff to efficiently serve the public. I'm ready, I'm willing to put the work in, and I'm committed to do so. I intend on accommodating litigants to have their day in court, even if it's outside the listed hours of 9 to 4. I will ensure that my respect for litigants, their time, their matters before the court is shown by being prepared and punctual daily. We must ensure that the court of the people, First City Court, has a judge who is fair, just, and respects people from all walks of life. And you have my commitment that I will be that judge.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for having us here. I want to thank y'all for the very thoughtful questions. One of the things that I really appreciated from this entire process and from campaigning in general is just getting to learn different perspectives and learn different things that would be useful and get different suggestions from people. We're living in times that I think, we can't deny are completely different than we've ever seen in our lifetimes. I think it will take a lot of creative solutions and a lot of working together and a lot of listening to people and trying to, make the best results out of oftentimes very difficult situations. I pride myself on being open-minded and being considerate of other people, and understanding, particularly in First City Court, with evictions and with people representing themselves, that oftentimes they are going through one of the most difficult experiences of their entire lives. And so I hope to be able to do a service to the community by applying my background, my skills, and being able to—
That's your time, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you.
All right, I guess that's it. Once again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to the candidates for participating. Wish you all the best of luck on Election Day. And we'd like to thank our co-host again, the League of Women Voters, Emerging New Voices and Voters, and the Urban League of Louisiana Young Professionals. Thank you all and have a good night.
Before everyone goes, I also wanted to remind everybody or let you know that we are having a legislative recap this Thursday at 7 o'clock. So we hope to see you all back in 2 days.
Awesome.
So thank you.
All right. Night, y'all.
Bye.